This is the Rich Dad StockCast with Andy Tanner, the show that kicks 401ks in the asphalt and teaches you to be the master of your own stock investing domain. And here's your host, Greg Arthur.
Hi there, this is Greg, and I wanted to welcome you to the show. This show is, it's going to be different because our last show, Andy Tanner really taught us about inflation, kind of what he sees coming in the future. But this show is less about the big picture and more about what you personally can do about it, how this information personally helps you. So I'm pretty excited about it. We're thinking about calling this one, How to Profit from Inflation, Action, Not Theories. So Andy was talking to me, and he won't tell me these things. He did say there's 5 ways that you, the individual, you, the watcher or listener, can use this information. So probably the sooner we get Andy on the show, I can shut up and we can listen to a real genius. So Andy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Greg. I look forward to this every week. It's one of my highlights, just hanging out with you and our producer, Rob, and who stays silent. So everyone should give a shout out to Rob because he makes this happen.
He's the guy with the radio voice and he won't talk.
Yeah, he's fantastic and he's a good guy. So I'm just grateful to be here, and I'm grateful for the opportunity, as a student, to share what I've been studying with people. I feel often, I often talk about Chicken Little and Paul Revere, and people don't know, I sound like both of them, I think. One of them's kind of a little bit pessimistic, and the other one's just a realist saying, hey, get ready. So right. I don't know that I'm, like an Old Testament prophet warning of things, but I'm going to do the best I can to share the passion I have for this. And here's a great question. Why, if it's boring, if it's something hurts my head, why would I study it? Why? It's interesting, Greg. People always ask me for advice. It's that advice culture. Tell me what to do. Always tell me what to do. No one ever asks me, hey, what book are you reading? What are you studying right now?
Can I stop you there? That's what's so great about the people listening to you right now. Like 99% of the people in the world don't know the stuff you share with us. So the people watching or listening to this, they're head and shoulders above the rest. First of all, they care, but second of all, they see the value in the knowledge. And so I guess we should give a shout out to the viewers and listeners for taking the time. I know time's scarce, and taking the time to learn from Andy, and especially this episode, because you're going to learn how the information personally affects you.
It's a huge thing. And I have to second that compliment, because there's very few people that value educational advice. When people say, how does this apply to me? What they're really asking, many of them, is tell me what to buy, tell me what a position. And they don't understand that education is about preparing, because I don't know what's going to happen. These things help me, but what these things do on a daily basis is help me better understand what can happen. And so we'll start with investors, and let's just kind of recap in case people need a refresh on what we talked about last time. We talked about the Federal Reserve System and the banks of the world, and the unprecedented control and power they're gathering in their tools. They're doing more and more. The unprecedented size of their financial statements, the rate of money creation, the rock bottom rates, their policies. And I learned something new that was really interesting. I did not know this, and it might be apocryphal, so don't hold me to it, but I read an article, and maybe it's someone just making, Barnum effect type connections. But have you ever heard of the Wizard of Oz? Did you know that was people say that was a commentary on the Fed? Oh, what is Oz? OZ for ounce of gold, yellow brick rolled. The wizard was behind the curtain pulling all the levers. And whether that's an apocryphal story or not, there's a lot of articles I found on it when I heard it. Says there's no way that's true. The more I read, I was like, wow. But what's interesting is, think about this. If there's a man behind the curtain and you live in Oz, and who got to see the man behind the curtain? Only Dorothy in the Cowardly Lion, who wasn't cowardly anymore, and Toto. So you are in a group that has a chance to pull back the curtain. And why would there be apathy? Let me say this, and then we'll get started. In my opinion, I can't think, someone might be able to come up with something, but I can't think of a force that has a greater impact on every human soul on the earth, that people have less education about and more apathy towards than central banking. When people go into a voting booth, they're going to vote for a politician, which comes from the word policy. We're going to decide how things are. We're going to decide how things are. And I would say that the vast, I mean, not like 60% majority, I'm talking 95% or higher, maybe even higher, have no clue about what these words mean, what these policies are, and how they affect their lives. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to talk about what it means to individual investors and why it affects them on a daily basis and what they might do.
Andy, I don't know that it's apathy. I think it's they don't know where to start. They don't know where to turn. And it's so big. The concepts are so big that like
It doesn't fit
like
in a tweet.
yeah. Well, yeah. And you don't feel like your own brain can handle it, which is why this show is so great because you dumb it down for us. And so everybody here listening, watching, like they're the few that aren't apathetic, and they're the few that actually believe they're capable of comprehending it with a good teacher.
Let's comprehend it. The first person that is intensely affected by monetary policy and by the Federal Reserve systems and the banks of the world are investors. We'll put them at the top of the heap, not necessarily in any order. We'll just talk about them first. Okay. If a person is an investor, whether it's real estate or stocks, doesn't matter, and they put their mind in real estate, in the small picture of real estate, or in stocks, they would have no explanation of the high prices we're seeing right now. They wouldn't understand them. They would be fundamentally in the dark. And when I mean fundamentally, I literally mean their fundamental analysis would make no sense. How would you invest in companies in an S&P that you're paying $39 for to get $1 back per year? That takes 40 years to get back to even, or you believe you're going to grow a lot, which is tough. That's a big lot of, $1 to $2 is 100% growth. 1 to 39, I don't even know what the math is on that. So if you're a real estate investor, or you're a stock investor or a business investor, even a commodities investor, if you're myopic on that and don't realize that the outside influence of money creation influences the prices of what you're purchasing and maybe selling, what a huge daily mistake that would be to not understand that there's not just the micro idea, there's macroeconomic forces that affect every single business, every single stock as a market as a whole. And so without an understanding of that, you're investing in the dark. Does that make sense? That it's almost like you're watching the right hand, but not watching the left as a boxer. Does the economy matter? Yes. Do sales matter? Yes. Does growth matter? Yes. Do all those numbers we look at, cap rates, NOIs for the real estate investor, PEs, capitalization for the stock investor. Of course it matters, but there's a force that props this up that is so, it detaches the market from those things. So on a daily basis, I'm going to watch the calendar and see what the Fed's going to say every quarter, and when they have minutes and when they have meetings. I'm going to listen because it helps me prepare for what could happen, for either more inflation and continuation of this, because I don't want to sit and not participate because I don't know what's going on or I think it's unsustainable. But I'll tell you what, I know where my seatbelt is. I know how to unhinge it, and I know where the life preserver is under the airplane, because it gives me an extra vigilance, and it keeps me every day. It keeps me skeptical rather than euphoric when I see higher and higher prices. I'm still participating. I still own stocks, but the safety mechanisms that I need to be ready to go with, there's a hunter safety class every time my son and I talk about stocks, because it's so easy to get euphoric when you see new high, new high, new high with no fundamental explanation on it. So when I make a day-to-day buy, how does it affect a real estate investor and a stock investor every day? Do rents matter to a real estate investor? If rents go up or down, when you have a fixed amount of debt, the rents moving matters to your bottom line every day. And so It's not about, I'm not going to give you the prediction because I don't know what's going to happen, but I can give you the inflation scenario, the deflation scenario, and maybe one happens big and pop the other. They could happen in sequence. But my question is, what are you going to do if you don't have the tools and you don't have the teeter-totter? I look at Warren Buffett's financial statement. I don't talk to Warren. I don't know him personally. I wish I did, but I try my very best to guess, and that's to just disclaim, that's all it is a guess. But when I look at how he's positioned, and I ask myself, what if this continued and the Fed continued to feed this? Okay, he'd be okay. He'd lose some here, but he'd gain a lot here. What if we had deflation? Well, he'd lose a lot here, but he'd be huge, powerful here. He has a teeter-totter of cash and investments that I see balancing each other in his balance sheet. And I feel he's very prepared the way I see it. He's got a lot of cash, where other people will say, I don't want anything to do with cash. Now, Kenny McElroy, Rich Advisor, doesn't need cash because he can raise it so quick. So he is really in a nice situation. But see, if you're an entrepreneur, real estate investor that can't do that, see what I mean? You're not positioned like Kenny is if there's deflation. If there's deflation and things crash, Kenny gets richer because of his ability to raise capital. But his understanding of the Fed and understanding of these possibilities helps him prepare for either one. So it's not advice, it's preparation. It's not betting on inflation or betting on deflation. It's being in your ready stance, ready to go. Does that make sense?
A little. I do have questions. So originally I would have said it helps them predict the future, but then it turned into risk management. And is risk management always 50-50, or does it, by studying this, do you then put more eggs in, say, the inflation basket and fewer in the deflationary basket? Because in your study of this as an investor, you realize
See, he understood.
You realize gotta love COVID. You realize one is more likely than the other.
Yeah, I think you do. I think you have to be prepared for both. And I don't know that I know what you mean by 50-50 mix. I would say that's not what I need, because I also have mechanisms that are leveraged that I can impose in an instant. One of the things that's tough to do is buy insurance when your house is on fire. But the stock market allows you to do that. Now, the insurance is expensive, but its order of magnitude is less. Let me give you an example. We talked about commodities before. One of the things I'm hopefully going to lose money on, unfortunately, I've been making money in it. Isn't that weird? Unfortunately, I've been making money on it. But I took a small amount of my capital, not 50%, but a small amount of my capital, and I bought some forward-looking, commodities investments that were highly leveraged, which means I don't have to have a 50-50. I can spend a little bit of money on insurance, and if the deflation or if the inflation happens, I get paid massively, like orders of magnitude massively. And unfortunately, those are doing well because I'm insured against inflation. We're having it. You follow? So it isn't a 50-50. And that's the complexity of it, because everybody says, well, my head hurts, I don't want to learn it. It can be so fun to learn if you take it an hour at a time. And people, their temperament, if those, like the people listening here are always patient. Our videos are a half hour long. Most people want a TikTok in 30 seconds, think they can glean something. I want an Oompa Loompa now, daddy. Give me the now. By investing a little time to learn about this stuff, that's where the complexities come simple, but it's a big menu to choose from. But here's the point I hope I drove home. If you're a real estate investor, do you see how the policies of the Federal Reserve affect you every day? Because the one argument I don't want them to be able to say, well, this doesn't mean anything to me, because it does. Every single day it does. There's probably no one they're not listening to any more carefully than when Jerome Powell's going to say something. The market, just watch the market on the days, just watch CNBC on the days he's going to speak. It'll be calm, he'll say something and things change.
Yeah, makes sense.
So investors, you're not an investor without a knowledge of money You know, the word monetary turns people off. The word money turns them on. Guess what? M-O-N-E, they're the same word. And that's where, you know, if someone says, some people, monetary policy shuts them off. Me, it says, what? We're talking about, because what is a policy? It's rules. So if you want to play the game, I say, would you like to know what the rules of money are right now? How are you going to go through your life at any level if there are rules for money, a monetary policy, the rules for money, and you don't know what the rules are because you want to just talk about the money? I'd rather know the rules first. So to me, it's very attractive to learn. And it's really what I spend most of my time in study of, interviewing PhDs and, you know, people that know more about it than I do. So
Yeah,
first
Robert always,
investors got to know.
Robert always says the first thing you do is you don't attack the system. Instead, you just learn the rules of the system, which is, I believe, exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, it's jujitsu. I'm not gonna fight your energy. I'm gonna move with your energy to my advantage, right? For sure. It's a gentle art. And the more I've known Robert, he's a big picture guy. He doesn't get in this. He get all the little details everyone else is worried about. He just, if you see the big picture, that stuff tends to work out. So the second person is the entrepreneur. Okay, so the investor buys businesses. The entrepreneur is in it and owns it and is building a team to run it. Think about how inflation affects different businesses differently. Food is different than, say, the person that owns a nail salon. There's this thing called disposable income, right? Or we have some consumer staples. Depending on what business you're in, you could thrive or die. COVID killed it for Zoom, killed it for Google, killed it for GoToMeeting, crushed movie theaters. Absolutely huge it made companies. You know, COVID, best thing ever happened to me as an educator was probably COVID, because all of a sudden people are like, we better learn about money, right? So there's certain businesses that in crisis will thrive, and others, they just get buried, absolutely buried. So positioning yourself as an entrepreneur, and again, knowing the rules of money. Are we poised for inflation? Now let me show you where the rubber hits the road. Let's picture this, Greg. You pull back the curtain on the Wizard of Oz, and he's got, let's say, they've got about 20 levers, but they got 6 main levers that really matter. Okay. And each of those levers can go 0 to 100. 0 meaning they're pulling the brakes off as much as they can. And this is full throttle to make change. If I pull back the curtain as an entrepreneur, I care about whether those are 10%, 20%, 30%. So let me give you an example about the Fed's power. Reserve requirement. What does that mean to you? What does that mean to you? Reserve requirement. What does that mean?
How much money I have to have in the bank to cover.
If you're a bank, right? If you're a bank, one of the member banks, you have to have on deposit at the Federal Reserve a reserve requirement. So if someone deposits $100,000, they can't loan out the whole $100,000 unless the reserve requirement is 0. That's money creation. I'm doing a class on this. We talk about this for an hour and make it slow for people. And I actually have a spreadsheet that shows the rate of that creation of money at different interest rates, and they can see it. So what's the reserve requirement for banks right now? If 100% wouldn't work, because then banks couldn't loan it out, 50% or 0. Where do you think it's at?
I believe it's 10%.
It's 0.
0.
Right now. So what does that tell you? That means that the Fed is pushed that lever as far as that lever can go to have maximum money creation. That tells me a little bit about what they're afraid of, right? They're afraid of deflation. That means they see huge, if you're maxed, how much medicine are you going to give me? What's your dosage of chemotherapy? If you're going to put me through chemo and give me the maximum doses, that means I'm probably pretty sick. So do you see how an entrepreneur and investor would care about this stuff? I can pull back the curtain and I can see whether a lever's maxed or whether it's pulled off. Okay, there's a bunch of levers like that. And if people don't know what federal funds rate is, or discount window rate is, or reverse repo rate is, these are the levers they use. And it's interesting to see if they're full throttle or not.
So that explains, I guess, why you really need to study in education, because to me, if it's full throttle, you're getting inflation. But the way you interpret it, if it's full throttle, that means deflation is more likely.
All right, let me give you a different analogy. Let's say that you're trying to run away from me in your car and I'm behind you. And if I catch you, you're dead. Just like an old fashioned car chase. The guy, the hero Greg is running away from the evil Andy, and I'm chasing you and you're panicked, and I'm shooting at you. So you've got your pedal to the metal, but I'm closing because I've got more horsepower in my car. How do you feel? I'm closing distance. You see, that's the problem. You've done everything you can do and it's not working. So if the Fed says, oh, we're going to put the pedal to the metal, but it's not working, that tells you that the Fed has less power. I need to prepare for them to lose their efficacy, basically. So learning this stuff really matters. I care about every one of those levers. I look at them. I care about them because it tells me what the Fed feels needs to be adjusted. It tells me how sick the patient is. And they've been trying to get 2% inflation for a long time. And so they push these levers. Well, all of a sudden, what happens if someone slams on their brakes? That can be a jolt too. And so they're traveling at such high speeds, so to speak, that we've got to have our seatbelt on. We've got to have our first aid kit. We've got to be ready for any type of car chase that comes.
Okay,
but
so
monitoring the car chase helps me. I mean, who wouldn't want to monitor that?
right. So I get the value, but to bring it down to the personal level, if you're an entrepreneur, that would tell you how much to charge for your products.
Pricing. Have you guys noticed that prices are going up?
Yeah, it's killing me.
What if you're too late? Then all of a sudden you're getting dollars that aren't very valuable, right? I'm raising my prices for sure, right? For sure. Because if not, you're not making a fair trade.
So before people get terrified, you can still get Andy's free stuff in our comments section.
Yes,
Nobody panic.
I don't want to terrify it, but no, I'm just saying, look at everyone raising their prices. The supply of money, you get a little bit of COVID supply chain disruption. That's a recipe for short-term inflation. Is it transitory? I don't know that it is.
What about salaries? How does it affect that?
What's that?
How does it affect an entrepreneurs, how they treat their employees or what they pay their employees?
That's another thing that you hit it on the head. Is the Fed has a dual mandate that's really a triple: stable prices, which seems to be rough for them to do right now, full employment, which is really weird because we've 10 million.
Andy, we lost you. So Andy, I don't know if you can hear us, but the last thing we heard is there's two levers that are really three.
Oh no.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh no.
So Andy, Rob, what does Andy need to do? Hang up and come back in?
I guess, unless you lost internet completely.
I'll text him. Sorry, editor.
Oh, you know what? I can pause.
Acknowledge we had a little technical issue.
Hey, editor, we're back from our mistake, mess up, whatever.
Sorry, editor.
Go ahead, guys.
When I get rid of my super bunny.
Oh, where'd your video go? There you are.
Did you see my super bunny? That's what the NFTs are this week. That's what they're
Nice.
about. Yeah. They're like 0.00 cents. All right. So you ready, Andy?
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Editor, here we go. So Andy, we had a little glitch there. So let me re-ask you the question. How does all this affect, we're talking about entrepreneurs and pricing, but how does it affect like how much they pay their employees, how many employees they hire, things like that?
You've hit it right on the head there, because the Federal Reserve, think about this. Their dual mandate is price stability, which you care about as an entrepreneur. You're selling your stuff, and then B, full employment. C is interest rates. They want moderate long-term interest rates, but those top two are everything. So, think about this. Are you prepared what happens to your business if they pump a bunch of money into the system and pay people to stay home? You're gonna have to raise your prices to get them to come to you. Or if money is devalued and there's money being made everywhere, people are willing to write checks for anything. Do you have enough staff? And can you keep your staff? Because, I mean, you start running through scenarios of saying, okay, what if I had to, double what I pay my employees? Could I do it? Do I raise my price? And so that pricing and labor and expense and income, why wouldn't you want to know the monetary policy, the rules of the money in doing that? So you hit it right there. So investors care about it. Entrepreneurs care about it. Third, I said that it affected everyone on the planet. Everyone has food, clothing, shelter, medicine, right? We're going to spend money on this stuff. So are we prepared that way, right? Where do you want to allocate your money as a consumer? And if you felt that you were going to have deflation, money might be scarce, well, you might buy different stuff. There might be a few less doodads in the budget because you're saying I better conserve capital right here so I can, prepare to buy things when they're cheap, investing wise. Or if you're a consumer and you feel like we're going to have some inflation, I actually felt I didn't have enough debt. I don't want bad debt, but I felt that I needed more real estate holdings because I can't think of a better way to short the dollar. So that's more of an investing move, but still consumers buy stuff and they spend money. So again, monetary policy. If I'm going to spend money, do I want to know the rules of money? Who on the planet says I shouldn't learn? Now I can understand people saying I don't want to do it, but I'm saying who shouldn't want to know about it?
Right. So I might not buy it. I might not buy that shirt over there because I'd rather buy gas or food. So
weighing that out, right?
Yeah, you shift. Okay.
It's to me, I think it's very much about preparation, right? It's very much about preparation. So fourth is the electorate, right? Oh, I just turned off my freaking phone.
You're still up.
Am I?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. I thought maybe maybe my old internet's back. It is. My old internet took over. Oh my gosh. When the phone call, it killed it. That's hilarious. Sorry, Mr. Editor. So, we're having glitches today. So there's the electorate. And this is kind of interesting is I really think there's a lot of wisdom in being apolitical. I want to make people earn my vote. I'm not going to go out and tell them what I declare. Earn my freaking vote. Right? Even if I was part of a party, they'd have to earn my vote. They better treat me right. So I've always, I've always really tried hard to stay politically neutral, but I still have policies all back. If that makes sense. Not party wise, but policy wise.
A little bit. You're talking policies like, for example, Biden versus Trump. Biden's probably going to do more inflation.
But what about a person who's socially liberal and fiscally conservative, right? I mean, I don't believe there's a one size fits all for me anyway, in what I believe. But I care about the policy, not that I want to change it, and maybe not that I could, but I can understand as a investor. As a voter, I want to understand it because maybe I do want to change it. And I at least want to vote my conscience. I had a really dear friend of mine talking about this the other day. I was sharing it with the monetary policy. He says, I don't think about this when I go in the voting booth. I just, do I like how the guy or the girl sounds? And he said, this would really make an impact in what I believe, because I'm seeing my beliefs superimposed on this policy. Some of it I disagree with. I think I'd like change. Well, how are you going to get change? It starts there. And I don't care what side of the aisle you want to be on. I don't care. Don't vote in ignorance. And then, you can take any topic, controversial topic. You can wind up on either side of it. But my message is do it with intelligence, not rhetoric and not dogma. Actually look at numbers. When I look at the Federal Reserve, I can tell you who got paid. I look that stuff up. I look at the money market guys that participate in the repo market. I look at their budgets. It's all online for free. You can see where the Fed is putting money at. Easy.
Okay, but as a voter, you don't get to vote in the Fed. So how does it really affect
presidential appointee in the United States?
Okay, so I'd like, for example, if I'm fiscally conservative, I would want a conservative president if I feel there's a seat about to open in the Fed. So just like
Yeah,
the Supreme Court.
if you like Stephanie Kelton and MMT, you're going to go with someone like Bernie, right? And that's fine if you understand MMT and you believe it, you can articulate an argument. So far I've invited her to be on some of my podcasts. She hasn't accepted because she probably knows she's very selective in who she'll talk to. But I've had 5 PhDs in a row, and I've said, "Is MMT a thing?" I'm a baloney. Why are we doing it then? So as a voter, I'm concerned about any policy that indebts my 2 sons when I'm gone, because I wanted to spend the money saying, well, they'll pay for it after I'm gone. I have a real moral issue with generational debt because they're getting debt they did not vote for. I'm for a balanced budget amendment, which will never happen. Never going to happen.
But so I'm getting a little confused. Are we talking?
I care. As a voter, I look at the Federal Reserve, and I'm like, geez. And I look at they're hand in hand with fiscal policy, right? Taxes and spending. And I look at the amount of debt they're racking up, and I've got people like Stephanie Kelton that are saying, it doesn't matter. Deficits are myth. I think they matter to my freaking kids because they're going to have to pay the taxes, Steph.
Okay, so bottom line, if that's the most important thing to you, you can pick your presidency that way because your president.
Yeah, it's a lot like Supreme Court stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot like Supreme Court stuff. How do you pick the Supreme Court's presidential nominee? That's why everyone freaks out over that. They should equally freak out over appointees to the Fed.
Yeah, and here I am. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So, well, you know what, Greg? Most people don't even know that. Like you and I were talking before the show, and we said monetary policy, and we were not our audience, but so many people just blah 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 blah. They want to talk about other issues, and what's interesting is on either side of the aisle, no one talks about it.
Yeah.
No one talks about deficits, debts, because neither party can solve it.
Right.
It's so far gone. It's so far gone. You can't solve this. You can't. You just can't. So 5th is this. Have you ever misjudged anything in your life? I think we all have.
Yeah, I'm on my 2nd marriage here, so
I've misjudged people often. And I feel awful inside when I do. I've had so many people, my first impression of them is, this is a bad dude. Then I got to know him and I was 100% wrong. I caught them on a bad day, or they caught me on a bad day, or whatever. And they just turned out to be wonderful people I've become friends with, where at first look, they didn't like me and I didn't like them. And, we had to grow together to have love. And I think that's the way it can be with your financial education. There is wonder in almost any topic I found. I used to say, I hate organic chemistry. And that mental blocked me from the wonders of it and the amazing world we live in. Well, the same is true with these policies. Well, I don't care about all that financial stuff. Well, I'm preaching the choir here because you guys are watching, because you are interested in financial stuff. But, I would say, don't be lazy with it. Don't look at it as a task. I had to change my attitude about going to the gym. I just had to, because as long as I hated it, I wasn't going to do it. And you just don't spend quality time doing stuff you hate. And so you look at things, is there good in this? And there's an experienced epiphany. I have a little project. There's this song that John Denver wrote about our Buckminster Fuller, who, influences what we do at Rich Dad a lot. I was introduced to his work by Robert, and he's a very impressive guy. I can't read his stuff. I don't understand. I try hard. He's pretty in depth. But John Denver is a friend of his, and he wrote a song called "What One Man Can Do," because that's what you say. What can a little tiny guy like Andy here, a little tiny guy, what can I do to influence the world? Well, I can teach monetary policy, and I can make it simple. So that's why I'm not doing a TikTok video on it. I'm not just going to do half-hour interviews on podcasts. It's a very complex thing. So it's challenging for someone who prides himself on making stuff simple.
Yeah.
So I've developed, it's probably going to be 7 or 8 classes, 90 minutes each. And I'm going to take each one of these tools and levers and have people explain them. And So imagine if the world, when CNBC comes out or the news comes out, and they say, well, the federal funds rate is this, and the discount window rate is this, and we're going to have a reverse repo rate of this, and now we have no reserve requirement, or now we do. For people to understand what they're saying, it's just as plainly as you and I know each other's name, would be a blessing to the world. So I'm going to give that course away for two reasons. Number one, I think it's a great civic idea to educate everybody. And I think it's self-serving for me, because if they like that and they like the style, they go, okay, this dude just made monetary policy not only simple, but fun and interesting. Right. Maybe they take another look at the options market. Maybe they invest in a class after that. That's my hope. But the first one is really, you can feel how frustrated I am that this force, I'll say it again, there's probably not a force, maybe there is, someone could correct me, that is immediate, that is threatening, is immediate, affects so many people, yet there's so much apathy and ignorance about it. Like, who could pass a basic quiz on the Fed? And it's not taught in school, which is suspicious, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Why wouldn't they want the rules of money, monetary policy, the laws we're going to follow for money? But we don't want to teach that. Let's dissect frogs, though. Got to know that one. Got to dissect that frog. Look, I'm not against the herpetologists of the world.
Oh, good word.
I think that's a guy who dissects frogs. I probably didn't even get it right. So I think it's a amphibian scientist. I don't know what it is, but the fact of the matter is, they don't teach it in school. So hopefully we can teach it here and, get people interested in programs like this. So I wrote them down. Investors, it matters.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs, it matters. Consumers, it matters. Voters, it matters. And it matters to you in personal, because it's an interesting, I look at Netflix and I'm like, why? There are hundreds of shows on that. Nothing looks remotely, talk about dumbing everyone down. My gosh, when I could learn something, in my house, my wife and I will do a podcast any day over Netflix, right? We'll do a YouTube video any day. Learning is fun. We live in a world where there's so much available. So my invitation, impassioned as it may be, how much do you know about the Federal Reserve and monetary policy? And if I made it fun, would you like to know more? And even if it's not for me, I don't care. Find someone else. I don't care. Find someone out there to where you and I can speak that language as investors, entrepreneurs, consumers, voters, and citizens. So we can start to. That's how you change the world, is by educating people. Yeah, I'm not ready to take up a fight against the Republican or Democrat. I'm not ready to do that, because they're so big, they just wipe me out. But I don't think anyone would be upset. Look, I'm just going to educate. And that's pretty tough to argue with. Okay, he's not going to take a side, but he will. Here's the fact, let people decide for themselves. Once I lose the burden of advocacy and I just say, I give you your freedom. Here's some data, here's some learning. You do what you want with it. That's America, baby. So.
Hey, baby. Well, Andy, thank you. What I really liked about this show is it applies to everyone. Even if you're not already an entrepreneur, if you're not already an investor, you're definitely a consumer. You're definitely a voter. So you definitely hit on this for everyone watching, everyone listening. And I do want to say we're excited. I'm excited for that course to come out. But for now, people, get Andy's free education. It's in the notes, the short notes, a lot of free stuff. And when you sign up for one of his free educations, that means you're in his list, and he'll let you know when the next course comes out. So Andy, thank you so much. You're a giver.
I love our time so much every week. It's so fun to have people like you and everyone watching. And I also would ask people this: take a moment and think about what you'd like to learn about and make a comment, because we look at those things to say the best way to deliver a great podcast or show like this is to listen to you guys. What do you want to learn about? What are the topics you care about? And I'd love to, I can't guarantee I'd know about it, but I do my best to either share what I know or point you to someone who might be able to help.
Cool. Well, thank you, Andy. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Bye, guys.